Hello there, and welcome back to the Disconnected. I'm here with Jill Gevargizian. Was that pretty close that time? Probably
You
not.
did a good job. It's just
All right.
Gevargizian. But
The wrong emphasis there. Yeah, that's always a difficult one. She is most well known recently for directing The Stylist, which we're going to talk about in super depth today. But also another Kansas City local, and just welcome to the show. How are you?
thank you so much for having me. And yes, all the Kansas City love all over this movie. It's exciting to talk to someone else from here because that's not normal for me. Oh,
uh,
switching my headphone already.
that is one of the big things I certainly want to hit today, because I have been trying to spread the gospel of this film primarily because of the Kansas City ties. It's always nice to glom onto something that's personal in that fact, and when it's somebody that is a local creator that's still working locally, even as a hairdresser and everything else that you do, it's nice to be able to just be able to preach the good word about something so fantastic. So first off, are you, I don't even know for sure, are you Kansas City native, like originally?
I am. I've just lived kind of all over the greater Kansas City area.
Yeah.
Born on the Missouri side. Then half of my school life was on the Kansas side. Um, and I don't know if you know, when people come here from somewhere else, it's like they're really blown away by this being right on the state line.
Yep.
Like it's
I
all
am
the
not
same place, essentially.
I am not a native, so I'm one of those people that's still blown away. I've been here for almost a decade, and it's been a crazy decade because it seems like there's a lot of people finally discovering Kansas City. I mean, obviously, two sports world championships in that decade has kind of been a big deal, but it's a big period of growth too. A lot of the suburbs have exploded. Obviously, the pandemic has treated the metro area is a completely different thing, and we're all still sort of adjusting. But this film in particular, The Stylist, really captures a lot that other places have failed to capture Kansas City. So why, other than being a native, why so beautiful, why capture Kansas City in a film like this?
Well, I mean, really, I always wanted to show off the city if I could finally make a feature here.
Yeah.
I had a couple projects like in this state of trying to get off the ground, trying to get financed, the Stylist and something else, and everything I was trying to bring here, but especially the Stylist, we wrote that in mind with like kind of picturing areas around here already.
Yeah.
And really, as just having all the pride for the city, I was excited to show it off in as many scenes as we could. Like there's a lot of scenes where we could have just picked any old, like for instance, a park or a parking lot anywhere, but we chose places where the city would be in the background, and like all
Right.
that was very intentional, trying to show it off because we see like Chicago and LA and New York in every movie, so it's like the location becomes a character. It's a big part of the film.
Right. And one of the things that people really don't realize is how much of the iconic imagery really is here, because it is sort of this perfect background for kind of like every style of film. It just doesn't get utilized as much as it really could, because I mean, first of all, it is a sprawling metro. It's pretty massive, just in terms of land, and you can go from full blown industrial complex to on a farm. And the coolest thing is it's like a 15-minute drive, and
That's what I
people
was
in
gonna say. Like we have such a variety. You could
yeah.
a suburb vibe, or midtown has its own feeling, or downtown, or the bottoms, and like you said, you can go not very far and look like we're in the absolute middle of nowhere. Yeah, we're trying to bring more of the industry here, I feel like.
One of the things I've laughed at, because I'm originally from California myself, and come here and people complain about traffic, and I'm like, you have no idea. This is perfect.
I was going to ask where you were from. Yeah, compared anywhere with real, like Atlanta is also shockingly horrific, because
Yep.
it's almost like LA. The film industry is huge there, but we have it so easy as far as traffic goes.
Did you ever see Aaron Brockovich by Soderbergh?
Yes.
That film is set about 10 minutes from where I grew up. The desert in the middle of nowhere in California is where I grew up. I've got friends that lived in that whole area, and that PG&E, the company, is still polluting out there, and they bought a city block. And my friend and his
Oh my
entire
God.
family, they as long as they signed and agreed to not sue them, they bought them a new house and paid for their old house and everything. So yeah, that's how close to home that movie hit.
Wow.
So one of the big things that I talk about on this channel a lot, as you can see behind me, is physical media, and this was one of the most on your behalf proud things that I could see for something like Kansas City to be able to get, because this release, in a word, is stupendous. I mean, you got a lot of things that other creators don't get. I mean, you got a really nice poster, you got a really nice booklet in here, CD soundtrack, which is super rare nowadays, especially for modern films, but a plethora of bonus features going into everything from stopping filming at the end or at the beginning of the Chiefs Super Bowl parade, to the behind the scenes of filming all around Kansas City, to your storyboarding that's pretty unique to the way that you do it. Arrow Video, how was it like working with them?
For all the reasons you just named, a freaking dream come true. I feel like we were so lucky to get a distribution deal with such a reputable company for
Yeah.
our first film, especially because I have a lot of friends in the industry, a lot of filmmaker friends who their first film, they have horror stories about the distribution experience and how a lot of companies just take advantage and they don't really include you in the process of packaging it and what it's going to look like or any of it. And this was the complete opposite. It was like Arrow brought us on their team, and like we were part of all of it, like spitballing ideas. What will we have as special features? Like the poster ideas, artists that we wanted to consider. And it was just like a dream. The artist who did that piece, her name's Sarah Deck, and she's worked with Arrow quite a bit. And that idea is all her idea. I was blown away by it because I was imagining the actress, her face would be on the poster, like
Right.
no matter what. That was for sure a thing for me. And when she presented this idea, like it is Claire, but it's like the reverse of what's in the film, the scalps, and the idea that Claire doesn't have an identity, just like how deep that idea of that image was. I was like, you get the movie, you understand like my intentions. But I mean, that's just one part of how incredible working with Arrow was. Like, we were already making those little behind the scene featurettes, not knowing where we would end up or if we would have a use for them. And then, they hired Alexandra Heller Nicholas to do the video essay that's on there, and then another essay that's in the booklet. I mean, it's just like the kind of care they put into it makes you feel like, they're like filmmakers that truly care about our like vision for the movie, the whole look, it all being cohesive. And it was like a dream. I feel like we were spoiled to death, and now I'm scared for what will happen next in my life because I have this standard of working with such incredible people. And then they went on to, they have their own streaming channel where we started on, but then this summer we went through them. We went to Shudder as well. And that's like, I feel like doubled our audience, and it's been a dream. I feel like and honestly, we got with the Arrow connection is largely thanks to having XYZ Films represent us as a sales agent. Because, they produce a lot of stuff, so people see their logo before movies, and they aren't a producer on the film, but they represented us as domestic sales and, got it in front of lots of people. And that's how Arrow connected with it. And I don't know. It was very exciting. I could talk about Arrow forever.
That's I adore Arrow. I mean, there's literally hundreds of Arrow releases behind me, and the moment I saw it announced and the artwork behind it alone made me immediately just feel so much immense like adoration for what you guys have been able to do, because first of all, just being able to hold this is a big deal for a lot of people, but this art specifically with it and what the film was, the moment I saw this, I immediately went, wow, they got Jill, they got what they wanted, they got what they're gonna get out of this film. And it kind of obviously not in like a premonition way, but I understood that this is probably going to be a film that steamrolls, because when it came out. Obviously, odd timing, pandemic, and everything else over the last few years. It wasn't going to be massive on day one, but with the Arrow player, with Shudder, with the Fangoria Chainsaw Award nomination, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
It seems like more people are attaching as it goes on. Does it feel that way to you as well, witnessing that from behind the scenes?
It does feel that way because it's weird for me to sit and realize, wait, we put the movie out initially 2 years ago already.
Right.
And I'm like, has it really been that long? And wait, well, yeah, we premiered at festivals 2 years ago, shot it 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's still that I'm still getting interest, thankfully, from people like you to be interviewed. It still keeps going. We have we have screenings lined up through the Halloween season. It does feel like that. And I think, like I mentioned, the Shudder edition, we went on there in May. Like every horror nerd almost in the world has Shudder. So tons of people who hadn't already heard of us are discovering it as they go through. I'm always searching on Twitter the title and Shudder, or the title horror movie, and I find the funniest things. Like, just posted something today. Some random woman is like, watched a horror movie called The Stylist last night. That was some wild shit. I love to see just like random statements like that.
Right.
And then saw a t-shirt that's being sold, a bootleg shirt, and I'm like, that's good and bad. It's good that the film
right.
But yeah, it feels that way, and I feel like that's common for horror too. Like, the ones that become like cult classics build, like that would be the dream a decade down the line. You never know what's gonna. I mean, all the films that we praise and worship now, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they were just kids setting out to make a movie for very little money that we're still like talking about and restoring every 10 years. And it does feel that way. And it was definitely a bummer to like do our festival premiere in freaking shutdown. Right. But there were a lot of pluses. So I'm like, I just try to look at the positive, because then everyone could watch it from home, like not just the people in Austin when we premiered. And so we just try to look at the positives. But yeah, it's been interesting that it's already been 2 whole years. I'm like, I need to make another damn movie.
Well, you brought up screenings. For anybody that might be local to the Kansas City area, I wanted to throw out the Stray Cat Film Center is doing a Q&A with you and showing this as part of Ladies Night at the end of this month, September 23rd. Tickets are on Eventbrite. I'll have that link in the description for everybody as well. But it is awesome to see stuff like that just still happening, especially for a film that certainly I can't imagine this had a massive budget in any sense of that word. That smaller budget feel, do you feel like that led to some innovation and creativity that you might have not had if you had a higher budget?
Definitely. I mean, it leads to innovation, and which you have to be figure out creative ways to do things on the budget. But I definitely would not say in hindsight that I don't wish we had more money and more time to do things that, like, we shot the whole ending sequence in 2 days. That would have been nice to shoot in an entire week, honestly. But I mean, they always say, like, constraints force us to be more creative. We have to be. If you're just like, I feel like that's with anything. If you're just given everything in the world, then you're not motivated to learn or do anything. But I did have a standard the Stylis was a short film first, and I made quite a few shorts. I didn't want to make a feature till I knew we could make it at a certain level. I didn't want it to be, not to like brag, but I feel like it doesn't feel like really small budget. It looks really good, at least. Because I've seen a lot of very shoestring budget films, and I was like, I'm not going to make a film that looks like that. I said that to myself a long time ago. But it's hard. It requires like a lot of passion and tons of people working for chump change, and I wish it wasn't that way.
Forgive the pun on the word, but or from the title, but this is an incredibly stylish film. And through everything that you were able to pull out of Kansas City with all of the local resources, is there anything that really makes you hopeful and really looking forward to the next decade of filmmaking in Kansas City, because it seems like things are finally like starting to realize like this is a good place to film. We got the there's a season or two of Queer Eye from Netflix that
Hmm.
shot here. We got The Last of Us. Can't remember if that's a movie or a series, but that just started filming here. What was that other one? There was an HBO show that filmed a season here. There's a whole bunch that just suddenly started cropping up like in the last 4 or 5 years. So do you see
Yeah.
some pretty interesting blooming future here?
Yeah, it seems like a lot is coming here, and like you said, I feel like that last is The Last of Us, the show on HBO. I feel like I'm out of the loop and everyone knows about this thing.
It's an adaptation of a video game, and I think it's going to be a series, because if I remember, it's a pretty complex story, so they didn't want to do just a single feature.
I think they've used like our we're like the backdrop for the show, not the
Yep.
whole show's being shot here. But then there's a
Yeah.
new show Amy Poehler's here producing,
Yep.
being shot like right now. I just saw someone I know with her. I'm like, can you please introduce me to her while she's here? Does she like horror movies? But yeah, it's exciting to see. And I think the Amy Poehler show coming here is a connection from the Queer Eye show. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, we have so much industry here, and everyone, like, lots of independent filmmakers making their own stuff. And then lots of, we have a decent amount of big commercials that come through. And and I know we have Steph Shannon, who's the head of the KC Film. She's really
Yeah.
works with the head of the Missouri Film Coalition too, of like fighting to bring the tax incentive here, because that's what really brings the industry. That's why Georgia is so popular for filming, because you get such a good, huge break. It's like, well, of course, no one's going to film anywhere else, because everything is so anywhere you can save $1. We do have a KC Mo film incentive that is, it's not a tax connect, it's a rebate. So literally, you spend this much money, they cut you a check for that much in return. And we did qualify. That helped. Every literal dollar helped. So she helped us work our ass off to fill out all this insane paperwork on top of everything else, to like, we'll do anything to get another, $9,000 to $10,000, anything. Which I realize making a film of this is really like, at this size, is like putting it together like chunk by chunk like that. Like unless you are of a dream scenario of some just millionaire that's like, I've got $100,000.
Yeah.
It's easier to find littler investments on the way, but that's also nerve wracking, because you're not sure how you're going to finish the movie as far as paying for it.
Right. And it's not just the overall look of the film that makes it feel bigger budget than it was, but I mean, you got Bria Grant as one of the main characters. You've got a really unique face in your main character, who's in Contracted, which made some pretty big indie waves. Like, God, that movie's a little old now. It's like 2013 or 2014, and she was incredible in this. And to bring those two here, just how was it to work with those two? Because I don't think either of them had done much in the area of Kansas City. Like Bria, I don't think had ever even been here before, right?
No, and Najara Townsend, I had met her actually at a premiere of Contracted in 2014, 13. I'm like, how has this been? It's like almost 10 years. Oh my God. Yeah, I saw that film at a festival and was most impressed with, like, she is the film. Yeah. The whole film's about her. It's like the Stylis, like she's in every shot, carries a whole movie. I feel like you can see her in that performance. Like, she's just an incredible performer.
Yep.
And like can say so much with just like the smallest facial expression. And I knew that this character needed that. Like, she's so internal, and she just can just do it. When we made the short film with her, we were just blown away. I was like, I don't know if this film there's no way it would work the same with anyone else. Right. I never wanted her to be have a campy vibe. I wanted her to feel very real, even though she's doing stuff very crazy. But yeah, bringing them both here was huge for the film. And Bria is such a huge, she's been acting since she was in Heroes and Dexter. Like, she's a legit seasoned actor, and she's now like a pretty big writer director. She's written on tons of shows also on Netflix besides the movies she's been directing lately. In fact, came down to if she could be in it was based on her schedule of all the stuff she was doing. And I'm like, I know that stuff's going to come first. Like she's directing
Coincidentally,
for a CW show, writing for a Netflix show, all this stuff at the same time. And
literally last night, I interviewed somebody that produced one of her films. So it's a very Bria heavy week on this channel for me.
awesome. Yeah, it was a dream to bring them both together here. And I feel like the film also, it looks the size that it does because we had such a huge crew. We had
Right.
a crew from Kansas City that I worked with a lot, Jordan Rio and Chris Knitter, their Method Media together. And Jordan's a DP. And then I worked with another DP named Robert Stern and a production designer, Sarah Sharp. They're the other two main producers on the film. They're from Chicago. I made the short with them. And then I met Chris and Jordan since and made a lot of shorts. And so I brought like everyone together on the feature. Robert was our main DP because that was always going to be the plan carried over from the shorts. But we essentially had two cameras on set at all times. So we were always able to get like twice the coverage in half the time. Wow. And between both of them, we have an obscene amount of gear that would cost normally tons of money, like a huge crane to get like these kind of shots that bring up your production value so much. Yep. That would cost a lot of money to rent all of that stuff. But we had like 2 trucks full of gear that they all own, that we all the movie got to benefit off of. Wow. And so the kind of stuff that we didn't have to like literally pay for, the movie is worth a lot more money in that sense. And we're so lucky to have all that stuff because it's like the difference of only having a tripod or being able to hold the camera and having, a 50-foot freaking, I don't have words, crane and just all different types of equipment makes all the difference. Seems
like nowadays the cheap way would be make it a drone shot.
Yeah.
And it is so much better the way that you were able to capture everything. It's just
when the drone shots become a little eye rolly now in the independent film because they're like, I get it, you have access to a drone, so now you're doing your like drone over this road shot or whatever. That's totally not necessary.
Not at all.
But then I say that, and I've done that I'm describing a shot I've done in a music video too. So, but yeah, I mean, all those tools help level up your production value.
Well, leveling up is the perfect transition to go. How do you go from a short that seemed to be so like beautifully received everywhere? It seemed to make like genuine waves across the country when it made that first festival run to putting out a full-fledged feature from something like that.
Yeah, thinking about it, I'm like, I wish the feature could have gone to places in person because I think it'd make all the difference. The short was like a dream. We had I and like Robert, our DP, I know, we had like this intuition that this was like something more special than what we've done before. Yeah. But we could have never have realized like we won like 20 awards at festivals. Like half of those are, I think, for Najara's performance, which hell yes. The whole movie's like thanks to her performance, I think. But I naively, I think, thought part of it would be easier, like the part of like getting maybe the financing to get it going, because we had the short, we had the success of it, right? And the short to be able to show people like as a proof of concept. And I got a really exciting producer on board at first on the feature, who's this is probably not secret, David Lawson, who I'm still love. He produced like Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson's movies, like The Endless, and he's produced all these huge films. Yep. So I was like, once he came on, I was like, we're set. Like, he's going to help us find the money. We're going to make the movie with like a real amount of money, whatever that means. And it just was, we had a lot of people really liked the concept and the short, but it just wasn't like no one was grabbing onto it. Right. We were getting notes though on the script that I ended up taking, and we like rewrote the damn script after that. And I love Dave. Like, he never did anything. He was fighting to get the film made. There's a million movies trying to get made at all times. Maybe 10% of them get made ever. And so I just told him, I was like, I'm going to take this back and just make it like guerrilla, like as low budget as humanly possible,
Yeah.
because I have to make it now. Essentially, it just got to the point. It was like years in between, and I just couldn't wait any longer. Finally, it like hit me like the fucking time is ticking, and I'm like got frustrated, and I'm like I'm done
Exactly.
waiting. And so I contacted basically like the three main people: Najara, the lead actress, Robert and Sarah, the producers, and DP and production designer. I'm like, what do you guys think about making this on our own? Whatever that means. Like maybe we have a Kickstarter for part of it, piece the rest of it together from investors. And they were just all like, let's do it. And I was like, this is insane. Because I was going to try to raise maybe like 50 grand on Kickstarter. I knew that's not even maybe a third of what we need for the whole thing. And I know how hard it was to raise only 10 grand on Kickstarter. So I was like, oh, well, I guess we should, like, if we're going to try it. And I had done multiple Kickstarters, like I said, but I studied for this one and prepared more than my short films. I like even looked at other Kickstarters that were successful around the same budget level for films. Like one was Bria's first feature, which is not a horror. It's called, oh my God, I'm going to mess this up. It's a road trip movie about friends. Fuck, I don't remember the title.
I'll get the title while you're talking.
But I put up like 3 different films that were successful and like looked at all their rewards, like how it worked, how they pitched it.
Right.
And like went crazy. And I created like a campaign schedule for like the whole month it was going to be live. Like we'll have these interviews coming out, different types of articles, like unique ways to remind people of it versus just plastering the same image over and over again, you know?
Right.
And so it was just like, sorry. We just thought like if we were going to try, like we needed to do it as soon as possible because it had been so many years since the short already. I was like, if anyone's going to help us, it's going to be all the people who liked the short film. And that proved to be successful. And I learned a lot from like other filmmakers along the way that I met at festivals were there with their first features. I'd be like, how'd you like get this one going? I can't figure it out. And multiple people, especially the guys who made Low Life, which is a fucking awesome movie, they were like, you just have to start making it, even if you don't know how you're going to finish it. And that I'm not that kind of, I'm like a crazy controlling, like plan everything. But I learned with a short, you can afford to do that. But at this level with a feature, I guess you just have to start. I was like, even like we had our post-production people lined up, but we didn't have the money to pay them and barely to get through the shoot at the point of starting it. But there's something to be said about people see you doing something and then it makes people believe in it and it inspires them. Then they want to help. They're like, oh, they're actually doing it. Like, I think there's something to that. And there's some cheesy saying about when the wheels are in motion, everyone wants to jump on. We made up our own really bad version of it on set and just kept making fun of it. We're like, the car's rolling down the hill, like really slowly with like no brakes and we have to jump in.
Watching the release of everything, it made me like I don't even know the right way to look at this, but like worrying that if you had delayed further, how much the pandemic could have kind of killed this movie. I'm just so glad that you got it out when you did, because if it would have been another like 5 or 6 months later, it would have been done essentially. So
I believe in like destiny than I do because of stuff like that. Like we got it wrapped in the middle of February. We had like Najara, who lives in London now with her husband, Tom, who also worked on the film. And all these people from out of town that would have been maybe stuck here or would just have half a movie and then never been able to afford to finish it. So I don't even know. And like being able to work on it, this is totally selfish, but for us who were able to work on it during the beginning of the shutdown, when it was at its worst, it was like a saving grace. So like we have this thing to focus on. Yeah. That's like makes me feel like I'm productive and doing something.
Keeps your sanity in place.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I wanted to bring up is that one of the tones I get from this film, which I think some other people have touched on a little bit, is the fact that there's no backstory for the main character, obviously. But one of the things that really comes across that I think is really up to you in this is that you seem like a very trusting filmmaker, and not just for the audience, but through the trust that you've grown with your performers and with the script and with you as a director to pull all of this off, because you are such a meticulous planner, that it seems to come across through the way that you create as well. So instead of, spoon feeding the way a lot of these current films have been over the last handful of years, every single detail to people, there's really a lot left up to the imagination of the viewer. Do you feel that sort of trust as you're making something like this?
Well, thank you for putting it that way. That's awesome. I've never thought about it that way. I think, well, as far as like what we reveal about Claire, that was a big thing that Eric Havens and I, one of the co-writers, when we first started putting it together, even Eric wrote the short with me. We always wanted her to be, we never wanted to spoon feed her past to people. And we both are fans of films that leave you thinking and leave you with questions to like ponder and to stay with you and create conversations between people. So we just never wanted to do that, to show it. We wanted to be open. I also love the idea of people being able to interpret her whatever they put part of their own selves into her. And we wanted, like, we have little hints of her life. I wanted to naturally try to place them in the film, like through conversations with Bria's character, little stuff. And then there's like Najara and I know her history. And I feel like if you know it as the filmmakers and the performers, you don't have to actually say it in the film. Like they're acting with that information, like in their inside. So that informs how they do everything and why. I feel like as a writer, or like you need to know, or nothing that they're doing has any reason or intention. So even more incredible, Najar really built that background of Claire with me. It wasn't just me. Like I told her what I thought about her, and it's evolved since the short film. It got so much deeper. And I learned from her to create like specific memories, not just like general background, like specific moments. And because she's always done that for her own characters. She's like, not all directors or writers give me background of any kind. And she was journaling as Claire while we're shooting, which is also incredible. But she had so much to like compartmentalize mentally. That's a really hard character to play.
Well, and that really shows that trust that you can have in her and the character itself, just for being strong for both of them, the character and the performer, because without those, it kind of loses itself. And with a film about identity, primarily at its roots, you don't really need to give the audience that, because it is so vague on purpose.
And in fact, we had a draft that went back into her childhood multiple times. And we even wrote that against our best like intention. We didn't even ever want to do that. And then we tried it and then showed that to people, and people didn't like that part of it. Even I'm like, so people who are like, I wish I knew what the hell was going on with her, which that's always going to happen. There's always gonna be those people who wish we explained it. I'm like, well, every investor we showed it to hated that part, and we never wanted to do it. So that, I was like, that they're justifying what we never should have done when I heard that feedback. And I was like, it's like a sensitive thing of how much I love Claire, of like, I don't want to actually show her trauma because I don't want to personally see it. Like we already know it exists. We don't need to see it. We've all seen that kind of crap in every movie. It's like, that's kind of what we don't have from Maniac. We get compared to Maniac, of course. And like, there's the flashbacks to his childhood. Same in May, which is another big one that we're compared to. And it's like, that's the one thing we didn't do. I mean, I tried to hint at it, but yeah, I just love creating something that people can think and talk about. And Julia Ducournau, the director of Titan and Raw, or Titan, she put it in the best way ever. I'm obsessed with her as a filmmaker. I loved Raw, but I really fucking became obsessed with Titan, which I only learned how to say that once I heard her say it. I'm like, oh, of course, we're saying it like a bunch of American rednecks.
Yep.
But she described it like how what her hope for art, or what she thinks art should do, is that it should create forward movement. And I just liked that saying versus just like creating she's like, whatever that could mean, like you think about it more, or it creates a conversation, or whatever it might be. It's not there to answer questions. It's just to like create some sort of movement in the world. I was like, that is a beautiful way to say that.
One of the ways that this has easily been able to spring forward and make movement is the fact that it is so female specific and female centric. And from the commentary, it didn't sound like you really set out to do a lot of that. But I really wanted to highlight, because first of all, this channel is a massive sausage fest. Most people in this hobby, a lot of people in this industry, it's all male centric. And I really try to get so many different voices that I possibly can. But it's hard. It's hard to not come across as, creepy to some people. It's hard to have people break down their doors when they've had bad experiences with people in the past. But you seem to go there full all in on the female experience, the fact that this is a female serial killer, which doesn't get portrayed that often. But beyond the female aspect of it, it gives this unique flavor to very specific things. Like, you have the vibrator scene in this film is such a unique take that no one really is ever willing to do something like that. And I obviously it's not meant to be titillating or sexy in any way, but it is such a perfect way to bring this class of realism to this character. And I just thank you for adding something like that, so somebody can see like this is relatable in an odd way, because we all have experiences with something like this. And it was just beautiful to see on screen like that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel like just naturally, well, I want to speak for all humans or females, is when we finally see more films from different authors. Like, for so long, most films were created by one type of person, like white men.
Right.
Then it's like when we really think about it, it's like, well, that makes sense why most of the films are protagonists are white men. We kind of like naturally cling to like what we know. I feel like that's why I wrote a film about a woman who's a hairstylist, I'm not a serial killer. That part gets funny when I'm cutting people's hair as well. But I just think like when we're seeing so many more films from women, from people of color, from the queer community, all different types, then we're finally seeing different stories and hearing different perspectives on the same type of stories.
Right.
And it's like, that's what we need to have, this plethora of different things instead of it all being very similar. And yeah, I feel like it's funny. I realized really when I started to break the script down from like a producer perspective, when I decided to do the Kickstarter and like first wrote a list of all the characters' names, and I'm like, oh my God, there's no men in this movie. Right. And except for Olivia's husband, played by Davis DeRock, which is a small role, but I knew that needed to be a really good actor because of the things they have to react to. But yeah, I was almost feeling like I know Davis really well and think he's incredible and always wanted to work with him. And part of me was worried. I was like, is this insulting because it's such a small role? But I know I need someone as good as him because of the big moments that they're in. Where I just lost my train of thought. What am I saying?
Female-centric, writing down the names.
And I'm talking about Davis. Yeah, it was just like, it just naturally happened. And then I thought it was, people pointed out things to me once it came out that I feel like is just like subconscious for me. But like, they're like, people writing these intelligent breakdowns of the movie, and I'm like, I didn't think about any of this stuff consciously. But like, someone said how like men are always in the corner of, even like blocking wise physically, like in the corner or the background of moments. And I'm like, you're right, and I don't think that was on purpose. And I wish I'm gonna pretend like we totally meant to put them always in the right corner of the frame. Purpose, yeah. It had intent. Well, we do plan a lot of stuff like that. Like we have like a camera language decided ahead of time, but that was one thing someone noticed. I was like, I just didn't even mean to do this. It was definitely not a man hating movie. Right. But it just was naturally like that, but I'm also naturally attracted to more and more female characters, and especially in horror. Doing crazy things is fun to see, and we've had so many in the last few years. Like, I love Prano Bailey Bond's Censor. Did you get to see that? That movie like blew my fucking mind. And we were up against her for all these awards. I'm like, give them all to her, like whatever. Which hers came from a short film as well that was out the same year as The Stylist. So I feel this like sisterhood with her, this like pride for what she's doing too. But yeah, I think it's really exciting to see this different. It's just finally we're focusing on the fact that there should be more people allowed to tell stories.
Right, and it didn't come across as sexist in any way. It was just a female story, and it's so rare that we get that. And it's that sentence alone, first of all, depressing as shit to say, but the fact that we, like there's the Bechdel test, which for people that don't know about it, is there two females having a conversation where it's not about a man, and it's like 93% of films or something like that all fail. That is never the case. And with the film like this, immediately it's just the sense of, okay, this is different. This is something that is special. This is something that will tell a different story. And that's the type of thing that I grab onto as a viewer, because I want to go into a situation that I know nothing about, that I'm not familiar with, and get this other type of experience, because I'll never be able to experience that. I'm not a hairstylist. I'm not a female. I don't know what it's like to be in a situation like this. And it was just wonderful to see it carried out the way that it was.
Thank you. I do have to say something about this masturbation scene.
Say it.
Which I'm only laughing because it's naturally awkward because we're all children.
Yeah.
That scene was like something which that came out of a brainstorm with my editor, John Pata, who's also a director, writer, way before we'd written the script. And I'm like, I want some, I'm trying to figure out more like moments, like big, like set piece moments that there could be that wouldn't be a kill, but would like be like just as tense as something like that.
Memorable for sure.
And it was an awkward thing to then approach once we decided to do it. Like, how do we make it not intentionally titillating? It's going to be naturally somewhat sexy. It'll like, because what's happening, and she's still like a beautiful woman. But I was like, I don't want the camera to be acting like it's trying to have that kind of gaze. And it was just like a challenge of trying to figure it out. Because I also didn't want to put out the message of like that masturbating is weird or awkward. I'm like, it's just this very specific situation that's obviously very, very fucking weird and very awkward.
But it is something that not a lot of people are willing to approach, and you are willing to go there. And that's, I mean, even who you are as a person, appreciating and promoting like the legalization of sex work. And in honor of that, I'm wearing a Vampire Hookers t-shirt today.
Nice.
Completely agree. And it's something that in society we just don't get enough, especially in the United States films primarily. We don't even like touch that subject because it's so taboo, which makes no sense because everybody has sex. I mean, we have people because people have sex, and it's pointless to not portray that in something where you're trying to make it semi-relatable. Otherwise, what is the point?
We've gone so far about worrying about, I don't even know, sexualizing people that we don't have sex in movies anymore. Which I feel like it just depends on what you're doing. In a certain scene, it makes sense to be sexualizing the characters if it's a sexy scene. I don't think that that's a demeaning thing. It's just that's what this scene is, or what the situation calls for. Which, we were trying to figure out, how do we not sexualize this moment?
And it's shot in just the perfect way for that, because it's a sideways, it's like a profile view. And when you're thinking about a female masturbation scene, nobody's going to go, this is the exact view that I'm looking at to be titillated by, because it's not. It's about the dramatics of, taking over somebody's identity. And it's so perfect for that.
And I did, because I've never dealt with anything sexual in a film before, treat it like maybe overly insensitively, but I think that's the better side to err on, and with something like this, with talking to Najara about it, and I was like, I'll cut the whole scene if you don't want to do it. Like that's how I was willing to do anything. I'm like her being comfortable and being in the film is like the priority.
Exactly.
And I mean, now, which this always should have been this way, but I think about how scary it must have been for like a female actress on a set in like the 70s, and it's all men behind the camera. There's not one woman that works on the crew.
Oh yeah.
And they're like naked, and it's very predatory feeling, even when it's not supposed to be. It's like, I feel like that's why the crew needs to be more even, and why we now have like specific people who like, it's almost like a stunt. I forget what they call it. It's like a coordinator of scenes like that to make sure everyone is comfortable, and to be like the advocate to vocalize things that people, because even in the most chill director, an actor feels this like pressure to do what they want them to do. And so it's like, even when you say everything, you just need to make sure everyone, like there's extra layers of people being able to talk through another person to get their feelings out or whatever. And I was very cautious because I had never done anything like that.
Well, that's the underbelly of the Me Too movement over the last handful of years. And it's even as a filmmaker, consent is incredibly important. And just being able to see that respect on the screen and behind the scenes, that's exactly the way it should be done. And I just hope that people treat it more realistically moving forward. Two more things I really wanted to highlight for people that are interested in seeing the film, or they haven't, or just want to, perhaps get the physical release. I love that you guys included your shot setting up that you've done beforehand, because it's such a unique way to go out and actually film it and get yourself in those scenes and realize this is how I want to set it up and everything. And then you got that behind the scenes as well. The release with Arrow is great, but I also want to throw out, you went international as well. I've got your German.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
For this cover, really incredible artwork, and I hope that more people overseas are capturing these, because it's amazing. And even then, with what we just talked about, you're even a centerfold now,
dude. I have to brag about the German. There's 4 different cover variants. I have them all now. I can't fucking believe it. In fact, our foreign agent, which is a company called Rabbit, they just Jackrabbit. They were Octane Entertainment. When they told us about this and the first sending me like PDFs of the cover, I'm like, what the hell? Like, people in Germany are putting out this collector's edition. I don't know what the hell is going on. And then we found out there's 4 covers, and then there's like only 333 of each one. Oh my, it's a dream beyond something we could have ever dreamed. Like, we're lucky to get a physical release at all, like you're mentioning. I mean, everything mostly is just VOD streaming, and I can't fucking believe it. We have a physical copy in France too that I haven't seen, and I think copies might be on their way. Shipping is a nightmare, but we're slowly releasing at more and more places, and like, we just signed a deal with a country in the Middle East. We're in South Korea, which the poster. Funny story, we have this foreign poster that I despise only because it doesn't represent the movie well. Like, Claire looks all sexy. It's this red poster of her in a red dress. I don't know if you've seen it, from her like from behind looking over her shoulder all like seductively, like she seduces men and then kills them. It looks very much more like a single white female, which I'm inspired by that, but that's not what the movie is. So I hilariously don't like it, even though like it's sexy and cute, but they South Korea used that one, and with the Korean language all over it, it looks so fucking badass. So I'm like, I'm framing it even though it's the sexy poster. She's like, I called it the Jessica Rabbit edition all along, actually. But no, it's like, it's mind-blowing to imagine that it's out in other countries. I don't even fucking know. I just don't even know. We've actually, I can't say where, I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything, but we've signed a deal with a company that's going to remake the movie in another country.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen, but
that's very cool.
It's fucking insane.
Interesting. Well, I guess on that note, the last thing that I'll mention again, all the links are in the description below for the production company for the old shorts like Call Girl. I got everything that I possibly can to put out there. So the final thing I'll ask is, are we done with Claire? Is there any chance we get a sequel to the Stylist?
That's I'm not sure. My original intention with the film, like me and the writers, is that like after the end of this movie, I mean, it's pretty. To me, it was like this is the end of Claire in this world, in this like that thinking. Because I mean, spoiler-ish alert. If you've seen the movie, you know it's not going anywhere good after this.
Right.
To me, this is definitely a spoiler alert. But the police are showing up in the next scene, and I just don't want to show that part. I wanted to end on Claire, but I now have thought about doing one, and I'm like, what if I would have to approach it from a totally different place mentally and be like, now we're in crazy land because Claire, in more of a realistic version, this isn't going to continue. So I have to kind of I've thought about it. Is it like Texas Chainsaw sequel where he made it a comedy on purpose and just goes all over the top? But a lot of people want a sequel, and I've always kind of said, like, I feel like sequels are demanded by the fan base. Like, no one intends to make, like, they didn't intend to make a sequel to Halloween or Chainsaw. They probably did Friday because they were just like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. But most of them aren't like intended to ever become sequels. And so I thought, and a lot of people said, like, how cool would it be for like bloody bride Claire to be out there like on a killing spree or something
on the lam away from the police?
I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know what like where it goes. I just don't know yet. But I would love to see Claire again personally.
Me too. Go ahead.
It was a weird feeling to realize, like right before it premiered at Fantastic Fest in 2020, like I was like, oh, this is coming. It was suddenly like this realization, like this journey is coming to an end. Right. Claire's not going to be part of my life anymore. She has been for like almost forever, with the short film to the feature. I was suddenly like, I'm like, now I'm going to go through a grieving process of losing Claire in this movie.
Well, thankfully, we can all keep living with Claire because it's out there in perpetuity, no matter if a sequel gets made or what. But Jill, thank you for your time. This has been incredible. I love all the insight, and I hope that there's many more in your future.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
You too.